Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at some, well, pretty intense source material.
Ah,
It's excerpts from a YouTube video, Trycinality Israela i Swiatoy Conflict with Zana Uwo, which means three Israeli raids and world conflict, a live vision.
right, from the channel WWIII's Krzysztof Jackowski official.
Mhm.
And WWIII means clairvoyant.
Exactly. So that sets the stage. Our job here is to really get into the specific source, pull out the key predictions, observations about global tensions, what it sees coming, and just to be crystal clear up front, we're presenting the content impartially. We're not endorsing it, just helping you understand the ideas inside this particular vision.
Absolutely. And it is quite a vision. It
Yeah.
weaves together recent events, geopolitical stuff, and then projects this really rapid escalation.
Hmm.
It suggests things could unfold very quickly, surprisingly, across several regions at once.
Okay, let's dive right in then. It starts with something specific, doesn't it? A recent event.
Yes, a serious Israeli attack on Syria. The source describes it as unannounced, hitting government buildings, even mentioning a palace.
Wow. And it highlights a Syrian TV reporter's reaction, like live on air.
Yeah, apparently reacting in the studio during the bombing. It uses that image to really emphasize the immediacy and shock of it.
So how does the source interpret that specific event? What's the significance?
Well, the interpretation is quite strong. It portrays Israel as acting like an opraka that translates roughly to oppressor or persecutor.
An oppressor.
Yeah, bombing, quote, any country for any reason. And crucially, the source claims this happens with the consent of the United States.
U.S. consent.
That's the assertion, that the U.S. is obligated to defend Israel no matter what, basically. And the source sees this as, well, problematic for America in the current climate. It's a kind of recurring theme you sometimes see in these types of prophetic dates, this idea of unilateral action backed by a superpower.
Right. And from there, it poses a pretty direct question, doesn't it, to you, the listener?
It does. It asks, essentially, is this some kind of U.S.-Israel agreement aimed at deliberately provoking a, quote, total war in the Middle East?
That's a heavy question. And it brings in other players.
It points out Syria is a Russian ally and also notes that Turkey is, let's say, not happy about Israel's attack on Syria. It weaves these together to suggest a deliberate setup for wider conflict.
So if this is seen as a provocation, what else does the source see unfolding in the Middle East? What are the broader visions?
Okay, so stepping back to that wider view, several specific things pop up. It predicts a coalition of Arab states forming against both Israel and the USA.
A coalition. Okay.
Then it sees Israel getting hit by rockets from two countries. It says they're not big countries, but the impact is significant, specifically for Netanyahu.
Interesting detail. What else?
There's a claim about Israel and the U.S. wanting control of the Strait of Hormuz. The source insists that's impossible without an open conflict.
Right. A major choke point.
Exactly. Then there are visions of Israeli cities being bombed quite heavily. Not destroyed completely, it says, but severely damaged. Massive losses for Israel.
Linked to anything specific?
Possibly linked to what it calls a short war with Iran. It also mentions a great surprise. Two countries, maybe together, maybe separately, attacking Israel when it's not expected.
The surprise attack.
And one more quite mysterious one. Two planes falling from the sky, either at the exact same time or very close together, maybe hours apart, just falling. The number of these specific potential flashpoints is really quite something.
It really paints a volatile picture for the Middle East. And then the focus shifts, right, towards Eastern Europe.
It does. It widens the lens to include Ukraine. It brings up these rumors, apparently, that former President Trump asked President Zelensky if the Ukrainian military could actually handle long-range missiles if America supplied them.
Okay. So how does that fit into the bigger narrative the source is building?
Well, it connects to this counter-narrative the source presents. There might be talk, maybe alleged NATO leaks about Russia, China, others allying against the West for a world war.
Right.
But this source flips that. It claims it's actually the West, specifically America and Israel, that's preparing the war. Israel attacks in the Middle East with U.S. consent. That's the idea.
So the Trump question about missiles.
Is framed as potentially another move by the West, maybe Trump specifically, to further ignite the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It's a significant reframing of who the source sees as the main drivers of this potential global conflict.
And it gives a very concrete example of spillover, doesn't it? Something involving Poland.
Yes, exactly, a specific detail. It claims a factory in Ukraine owned by a Polish millionaire was bombed.
Okay.
And the source interprets this not just as an attack in Ukraine, but in effect on Poland. because it was Polish private property, a Polish business interest there. It shows how these things aren't seen as contained.
That makes sense. So what about Ukraine itself? What specific visions does the source detail there?
For Ukraine, the visions are quite stark. It talks about Ukraine being decimated.
Decimated? By what?
By massive air raids, apparently triggered by some unspecified event. But interestingly, it clarifies decimation isn't just about casualties. It's more about people fleeing. Mass displacement, powerful attacks, hitting areas that hadn't even seen fighting before.
So widespread panic and emptying out.
Seems like it. And this leads to the situation between Russia, Europe, and America becoming incredibly tense, very dangerous.
And there's a trigger point mentioned, something Ukraine does.
Yes. It predicts Ukraine will do something, maybe an isolated incident, not on the main front lines, but something that causes absolute fury in Russia, in Putin personally.
Fury. Leading to what?
Leading to many casualties in Russia, according to the vision. And this event completely changes Russia's entire approach, not just to the war in Ukraine, but maybe beyond. It's presented as a real turning point, a point of no return almost.
Wow. Okay, so from Ukraine, the focus sharpens even more, moving directly to Poland.
And here this source makes a strong assertion. Poland is prepared for conflict.
Prepared. That sounds like a change.
It is. The source notes that for a long time, its own visions didn't show conflict in Poland, even with the war next door. But now, that's changed. Poland is seen entering a time where it will actually participate in war.
So what are the specifics? What does it predict for Poland?
This is where it gets very detailed and quite concerning if you take the vision at face value. First, a provocation inside Poland.
Like what?
Like maybe a small military airport or some kind of storage depot gets attacked. And it will be immediately blamed on Russia.
Okay. And the reaction?
A swift international outcry. Russia, the source says, will try to prove it was a setup, a provocation, but the outcry will be immediate.
And the Polish government?
The vision suggests the current government won't react militarily. But maybe a new president, the source mentions a name, Noraki, connected to this, somehow might push for a response, but that gets stopped.
Interesting internal dynamic there. Then what?
Then comes a very specific timeline prediction. Within about 30 days, and the source connects this to mid-July to mid-August, a world war will, quote, unfold and start escalating seriously.
30 days? That's incredibly soon. And Putin's perspective in this?
The source claims Putin genuinely fears an attack provoked by Israel and the United States. It's portraying him as reacting, not initiating the larger conflict.
Okay. Any other visions connected to Poland?
Yes, there's another one linked to Trump, suggesting a possible retaliatory strike on Poland. That's mentioned alongside destroying gas reserves and taking the Strait of Hormuz. It seems to bundle these potential actions.
A retaliatory strike. And Lukashenko, Belarus.
Lukashenko is seen as wanting to warn Poland, basically telling them that Russia knows America wants to engineer a situation where Poland's leaders order their troops into the conflict.
A warning. And if Poland does enter the conflict...
A stark prediction. NATO countries will initially only arm Poland. They won't jump in to descend it directly, not at first.
Just weapons, no troops. That's significant.
Very. And then, looking further ahead, after the conflict, the source sees Poland's actual shape changing on the map. People from some regions will have to leave, abandon their homes, their land. It's a prediction of permanent physical change.
That's profound, a reshaping of the country. And the source gives practical warnings too, right, for the listener?
It does. Very practical, almost urgent advice. Stock up on basics, medicines, cash.
Why cash?
Because, the source warns, World War III could develop very quickly, even momentarily. Systems could go down instantly. You might need cash if banks or cards don't work.
Right, okay. That makes sense in that context. And the German border.
Yeah, it emphasizes the German-Polish border, points out that the controls currently in place, which weren't always there under Schengen, remember, mean that if Poland declares an emergency or enters a war footing, those borders could slam shut instantly.
Leaving people stranded.
Potentially. Unable to leave if they wanted or needed to. It highlights that as a practical consequence of the current situation combined with potential future events.
And it briefly touches on other Eastern European countries, too.
Just briefly, yes. It mentions unsettling visions for Lithuania and Finland as well, suggesting the turbulence wouldn't necessarily be limited just to Poland and Ukraine in that region.
Okay, so if we try to pull all of this together, the overall picture is one of incredibly rapid, widespread, global escalation.
Exactly. Multiple fronts, Middle East, Eastern Europe activating almost simultaneously or in very quick succession. with dramatic, unforeseen consequences.
And the source seems convinced this isn't just theoretical. It feels like World War III is, in a sense, already happening.
That's the strong sense you get.
Yeah.
It's already underway, and what we're seeing, or about to see, is just the beginning of its full, terrifying escalation.
It's certainly a comprehensive set of predictions covering so many areas, specific actions, alleged motivations.
It really is. And, thinking about the implications, if you were presented with information suggesting such a sudden, massive shift in how the world works,
Yeah.
it does make you pause and think, doesn't it, about what it even means to be well-informed when you're facing forecasts this specific and this dire.
Yeah. The scope and the way it attributes cause and effect, especially the idea of internal provocations, it's a very particular way of looking at global events, which leaves us, and you, with a final thought to maybe mull over. Given this source's intense focus on a fast-approaching global conflict, and this idea of nations being sort of maneuvered into it, what unexpected sparks might you be overlooking in the daily news? And how does hearing these kinds of specific, really quite alarming warnings challenge your own sense of readiness or your understanding of how stable things really are?